All right. Good afternoon, fellow grouse, woodcock, forest, bird dog, pollinator, water quality. I'm just gonna make a list of all the aficionados who I hope are here with us. From the last call, I'll say like people who are excited about getting kids into the outdoors and influencing them from an early age. We had a couple of inspirational colleagues in Sean Berry and Ben Rhodes talking about their grandfather's role in setting them down this path of conservation. So hopefully, we're in this virtual meeting space with a bunch of people who resonate with those ideas. Two people I'm here with, I know, resonate with those ideas: Melly Napper and Luke McNally. We're gonna hear from you today and the great work that you're doing in our Northeast region. But before we jump into that, just want to help orient folks in case we have any new attendees to the space. So again, welcome. My name is Carl Malcolm. I serve as the Vice President of Conservation for the Ruffed Grouse Society and American Woodcock Society. And this is our Giving Tuesday outreach. So we're on the heels of Black Friday, and maybe people were parked out at the I said Best Buy earlier, so let's go with like you went to Farm and Fleet because you wanted to get a hot deal on a muck bucket, 50% off at Farm and Fleet. And then around came Cyber Monday, so trying to get all the hot deals for online shopping. Today is about giving back as opposed to consumption. Not going to knock consumption too much, but I will say today's about giving back. And for our organization, and I'm not saying our organization like the three of us on the screen, I'm saying our organization, everybody who's part of this community, the folks who care about healthy forests and wildlife and want to leave a legacy for the people who are coming behind us. Today's a great day to celebrate the accomplishments of 2025, to look forward to the great work we have ahead of us in 2026. And really just to take a moment to say thank you to all of the folks, all of you who make this work possible. In terms of our run of show for today, we've had a number of region-specific sessions. We have 6 regions of conservation delivery within our organization at RGS and AWS. And each of those regions is being granted an hour to celebrate the success. So we're now on the Northeast region, and we have 2 of our amazing team members here who are approaching this work in quite different fashions. The separation of the work, I think, is something that we'll definitely want to dig into. But Luke and Melly, before we get into actually talking about the work you all are doing, one of the goals that I had in mind when I was thinking about these sessions for today is wanting to just put a spotlight on the kinds of people we have working for our organization, the values that people have, the stories about experiences that brought you to this work. Like any job, there can be tough days trying to deliver conservation on the ground. Things can get frustrating. You can run into all sorts of different obstacles, and I know both of you have certainly encountered your share of speed bumps along the way, as is par for the course. But what keeps you going? Those are some of the kinds of questions, just for starters, so that our fellow conservation champions here have a sense of like what makes us tick in this organization. And no two of us are the same, right? So I'm going to start, Melly, with you, and you can share anything you want to kind of paint a picture of what you are about as a conservation professional and what brought you to this work.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Carl. Amelia Napper. Everybody calls me Melly, Vermont public land forester. And I guess something about me is I grew up in rural Alaska, and so uh, the island I grew up was tundra, so I didn't grow up with trees. So I was drawn to Western North Carolina, and that's what uh, brought me over there for school. And I realized I was like, wow, I really like the mountains and I really like trees. But I didn't realize that I wanted to study forestry until later. So but yeah, that's what brought me to the area, and then eventually brought me up here to Vermont. So yeah, I love I love being outdoors. I love working with people. I guess what makes me tick is that the work that we're doing just makes me hopeful, because I know that I'm doing something hands on and I'm doing something tangible that is having an impact on the landscape. And for me, it's been really rewarding to like go into these, treatments 2 3 years later and just hear the diversity of birds, hear the grouse drumming. So yeah, that's what makes me tick. I know what the successes are, and so it's been really rewarding the work that we're doing. And I really am enjoying the position that I'm in, where I'm working in partnership with the Green Mountain National Forest, and public lands are so important in the Northeast, and I'm just really glad to be a part of that uh, that work. So yeah.
I love that. I love the idea of the work being an act of hopefulness, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's something you can do. If you care. I'm thinking about that great Leopold quote. To have an ecological education is to live alone in a world of
World of
wounds.
wounds.
A world of wounds. It's like, okay, all right, Aldo. But is
Mm-hmm.
it alone, really? Because there's
Yeah.
a lot of people. There's a lot of people who care, man. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people, and you can do some things. You can act on hope, like Melly Napper's doing. And I love one of the things I love about working with Luke McNally is the dude is well read. The guy likes he's a bibliophile, man. And the fact that I start a Leopold quote and he knows where I'm going, that impresses me, Luke. So besides, or maybe elaborate on being a bibliophile, but whatever you want to share with the group. Who are you? What are you about?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. I think what you're going on here is like, what is my origin story, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like I have this dramatic origin story of how I got into this kind of work, which I won't, rattle off the whole thing, but one of those same questions I ask people that do natural resource conservation work all the time is like, what is your origin story? And the ones that just reply with like, well, we were always outside playing when we were kids. I'm like, well, that's not very dramatic, right? Like, hit me with that moment when you were totally overcome with emotion. And so I think, yeah, what really gets me out of bed every morning is the idea that habitat quality can be improved. Um, and I'll share a quick anecdote. So I took some time off in college and I was working up in the Pacific Northwest for the Yakima Nation Tribal Fisheries Agency. And we went in to look at a project after it had been completed. It was an old haul road. So, some industry, mining or something, had built this haul road in the floodplain. And the the tribe had, contracted with a heavy equipment operator to remove the whole haul road that was blocking the floodplain. And we were out there the day after, all the equipment had gone quiet. And we rounded this bend and there was this kind of slack water pool that we had installed, right? It's this idea that like, you can build stuff like you would build a house or a garage, but instead it's habitat for wildlife. And we come around this corner and a raft of ducks just gets up off of the pool that had just finished being constructed, you know, yesterday. And that was kind of my moment when I'm just like, okay, I think I know what I need to do with the rest of my life. Otherwise, what's the point of getting out of bed?
So I'm guilty of what you just described, man. Like I grew up playing outside a lot when I was a kid. But before I say that, what I should say when somebody asks me a question along those lines is like, well, how much time do you have? Right. So if I've ever used I spent a lot of time playing out in the woods when I was a kid. That's like I don't have a lot of time to engage in this
Yeah, I don't want
conversation.
to talk to you right now.
But if somebody's like, man, I'll tell you what, I've got like 90 minutes and I want to hear what your origin story is, then I'll crack my knuckles and be like, all right, pull up a chair.
Yeah.
Let's start the wood stove up and have a conversation about this. Love it, man. So those are that's see this I'm hoping people who are listening to this are like, all right, All right. So this is an organization with some cool folks in the mix. And Melly, I didn't know that you grew up on an island in Alaska. So, there's value in just having some time to ask these questions. I feel like when I started working with the two of you, we just like jumped in and there was a lot of issues, right? And it's nice to have a little bit of time to just hear a little bit more around the backstory, the origin stories. So folks, again, an invitation. If you've got any questions that you would like to present to Luke and or Melly, throw them in the Q&A. If you've got a fun origin story, even if it's as simple as spending a lot of time in the woods, give us a little taste of that in the chat box. Let us know what led you to be a person who takes some time on a Tuesday afternoon to get on a webcast about grouse and woodcock and forest health and habitat. Like, what is it that led you to this space? And we are glad you are here. So I mentioned the fact that the two of you've got like similar titles, but the kinds of work that you've been doing, you've alluded to it already. You've got a private lands, a public lands. Give us a little more specific, like paint a picture with some more detail around the kind of conservation delivery work that you're doing. And Luke, I'll start with you for this question. Like, what's a day in the life of Luke McNally in the private lands world look like?
Yeah, so I work with primarily with USDA, NRCS funding mechanisms for private lands conservation delivery. So I advertise and solicit new projects. I meet with landowners. I have coffee at the farmhouse kitchen table with a landowner, and I try to understand, what their goals are for their property. What are some of the problems, opportunities? What do they want, right? Like, a lot of them say, well, I want some grouse habitat, but maybe they don't. Maybe they want something completely different. Maybe they just want to control invasive species. And, for example, I see some of those same folks that I've had that cup of coffee with are on the chat right now, which is pretty cool. And I'll either, help them develop a plan or work with their consulting forester to come up with a plan, apply for NRCS funding. And it's really cradle to grave. I do everything from advertising what the programs are that are available and, how to navigate that federal bureaucracy, which, as most of like, my job is to make that easier for you, the landowner, so that you can, get through it without a huge headache. I have the headache, you don't. And I, cradle to grave. So right up until soliciting a contractor, hiring a contractor, make sure the contracts are in place, making sure that that work is executed according to the design, to the specs, certifying that work. That's a quick snapshot. I also do a little bit of work with public lands, so working with our town and county municipal forests, our state agencies. But I'll turn it over and let Melly have the floor here for a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Yeah, so as I said, I'm working on Vermont Public Lands Forester, but I'm just working on the Green Mountain National Forest. So my position is actually a part of the same agreement that some of you may have heard that some of my coworkers in other regions are working a part of. So I work just with the Green Mountain National Forest, and I'm pretty much kind of in-house. So I started my position by working with their timber marking crews and with their silviculturists and the foresters on their forest, and just got really well acquainted with their procedures and what their goals are. So it's been a really great experience just working so closely with the Forest Service and building those relationships. And the, I guess, exciting part of the agreement, in addition to just being able to work on public lands and helping them to accomplish their goals related to getting work on the ground done, is we are also right now administering a timber sale that the Rough Grouse Society which was me, prepared. So I prepared the sail last winter and cruised it, got everything ready, advertised the sail this fall, I guess it was, and we sold it just a few weeks ago. So the idea there is we're once again just, I guess, taking things off of the Forest Service's plate so that they can get more work done. So I'm taking on some of those sale administration um, parts that, it's the biggest bottleneck for the forest is just having boots on the ground. So my position has been assisting them with that. So yeah, we're currently in the process of administering a sale. Grass Mountain, we had a few members come out this summer, and we had a habitat tour. So that's been great, showing people around. So I'm excited for what's coming next. The loggers are making good progress, and they're doing great work out there. It's great ground, and I'm excited to see what it's going to look like when it's done. It's already looking great. So yeah, so that's a lot of what I'm doing. And the hope there is obviously that we can do more uh, projects like Grass Mountain and take on more stewardship sales. um, because another part of the stewardship sales is we're also able to accomplish other restoration work. So beyond just creating habitat, that early successional habitat, we're also planting more oak and red and white oak on the landscape, because that's something that is already on there, but it's just not there's just not a lot of it. And we're also removing some undersized culverts, so doing some stream restoration work and treating invasives. So it's been a really, really great project, and I'm excited about it.
And I think I was not long on the job in my role when I started hearing about the strength of the relationship on the Green Mountain. And it really is, it's a one person force that's making that happen. And so in this case, I think for a lot of folks, they probably don't even realize that Melly is not a Forest Service employee when they see her there in the office, visiting the paint shed, going out in the field to help lay out the sail, and then interacting with the logger who ultimately was awarded that sail. There's a lot of work if you talk about administering a sail from cradle to grave, and then also administering all this stewardship work, the service work associated with translating the value in the trees into other conservation outcomes. That's a lot of work. And Melly pointed to the fact that for the Forest Service, the boots on the ground, the people are the key bottleneck right now. And so just highlighting that idea of, like, when it comes to an organization like RGS and AWS being able to use our resources really wisely in a situation like that, we're paying for a small fraction of the cost of Melly's position. And that's a mandatory ingredient for the Forest Service to be able to bring to bear. In this case, that was a $2 million region-wide stewardship collaboration. Melly's position is a small piece of that $2 million worth of work. And we are, as an organization, bringing a small fraction of that amount to be able to deliver on the scale of, all of a sudden we're talking, rather than tens of acres, we're talking thousands of acres or tens of thousands of acres across multiple forests in the eastern region. But a point I want to highlight here is, like, that engagement, that presence, and that familiarity and trust. That's probably the best word. The trust that is established with a position like Melly's, being in situ, like there day in and day out. There's not really a substitute for that. Those relationships are the key. And you have heard, and you will hear more examples of that trust building and relationship building. And because of this model of leveraging investments, we've been able, as an organization, to grow more positions and have those people embedded at places like the Green Mountain National Forest. And if it's people like Melly, it's going to be a successful relationship and a successful project, because she's easy to work with and she knows how to get things done. So that's awesome. And then Luke, I want to highlight some of the successes of the last few months, because another exciting dynamic for the Northeast region is we have been in the process of evaluating candidates for our vacant Forest Conservation Director position for the Northeast region. And Luke's title is focused on private lands, but with a vacant forest conservation director for a handful of months now, Luke has been picking up a tremendous amount of slack in the system and helping. There's a great diversity of agreements, a number of different partnerships. Luke, I know you had a chance recently to go out and visit John Foppert with Paul Smith's College. I was thinking maybe you could talk a little bit about what you saw when you were out there, but also just want to highlight the versatility and adaptability that you've brought to your position. And a lot of things happening, not just in the NRCS context. I think folks are aware there was this government shutdown for like 40 some days, right? And during that time, Luke was really in a position to be able to do a lot of different things besides that agreement through NRCS. So, what are some of the highlights that you'd point to outside of the NRCS work, Luke?
Yeah, well, we could talk about Paul Smith in a minute here, Carl. But first,
Sure.
before we really switch gears, I just want to say for all those folks that are just listening to figure out where some good spots to go shoot birds, you want to go down to Melly's neck of the woods in the Green Mountain National Forest. You want to drive to Manchester.
I keep getting texts. Where are all the clear cuts?
You want to drive down to Manchester, okay? If you're heading south, you drive to Manchester, you want to turn left. Okay? That's where all the good hunting is. I'm serious. It is. It is pretty good down there. And in part thanks to the work that the Forest Service has been doing there for a long time, and Melly's blowing it up. So a little bit of jealousy, of course, coming from me on the private lands side of things, because we like squeeze blood from a stone to get, 10, 15, 50, 100 acres of habitat work, and Melly's just like cruising, literally cruising. But speaking of scaling up, yeah, so Paul Smith's College, we put a grant into the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, a couple of them actually, and we put in a grant in partnership with Paul Smith that was awarded last year, and so we're really excited about this opportunity. Paul Smith's College is a large landowner. They own over 11,000 acres, I believe, in the north central Adirondacks, and we're going to be doing it up sizably with Paul Smith. We got a good partnership going with John Foppert. We're going to be doing a lot of work on Paul Smith's property, as well as quite a bit of outreach to landowners in the surrounding area. So we're really trying to use that as an anchor point and a forest restoration block. I was able to go out with John Foppert recently, and he had the students out there marking the trees for the work that we're going to do coming up here real soon. So it's really exciting. It's nice to hang out with young people that are out there doing that work. And, I've always been aware of Paul Smith. I went to school out west. I wanted to get out of New York State. So I was always kind of aware of Paul Smith and like how cool it was, but I never really been there before. And I finished my tour with John Foppert, standing on a landing where they have their pro level crew of students and recent graduates who are doing all the work. So students in the skidders, students in the slasher, students on the saw, fuel tanks in the back of the pickup, the whole 9 yards. I was really impressed to see it. It's just like a whole nother world up there. Like Paul Smith's in the snow almost reminds you of like that Planet Hoth from Star Wars #2 or #5, however you're counting the Empire Strikes Back one, right? It's just like this remote outpost covered in snow, and they've got like snowmobiles and vehicles and everything all over the place. It's badass. At lunch, John takes me into the cafeteria, and there's all these students milling about, and you step onto a typical Paul Smith's campus, and you'd see young men that look like what young men look like in college, and young women that look like what young women look like in college, right? You step into the cafeteria at Paul Smith's, everybody looks like they're dressed to go ice fishing.
These are my people.
They got on their
What a
like
Carhartts.
their bibs and their Stormy Cromer hats. Like it would not be unusual for someone to walk into class with all their textbooks like in a pack basket. But it's just
Like we're hot dates going out to check the muskrat sets, man.
yeah, or they look like they're going to work down at the DPW garage.
Love it.
It's
Love it.
hilarious. I love it. But yeah, in all seriousness, we didn't forget about Vermont and that grant opportunity. We got a couple projects moving forward in Vermont finally. So from our previous NIFWIF award, the project at Fairfield Swamp Wildlife Management Area in Franklin County, Vermont, is moving forward this winter. We're going to cut that. We've got a project, timber stand improvement and early successional project going down at the Huntington Community Forest. So some of you are familiar with the forester Ethan Tapper. This is a project that he started when he was still working with the state, and we were able to do some, bring some funding, some cost share to start that project. We have several wildlife management area projects, throughout the Champlain Valley that some of the folks on the call are aware of that are probably in various stages of limbo, but Huntington's moving forward, Fairfield's moving forward, and the Narrows WMA is going to be moving forward. So that's all really exciting work. And yeah, I got more I could talk about, but I want to make some space for Melly.
Yeah. Let's make some space for Melly. And I can't resist throwing one other John Fobbert. So John, he's a professor of forestry at Paul Smith College, right? And I think the first time I talked to him and the second time and the third time I talked to him, I heard him say, I have a simple goal, and it's to graduate the best foresters in the world. Like he wants those students to come out of there ready to rock. And so this idea of having them execute on the dynamic forest restoration block model and then have that be a showcase. And this is going to be a transition to a question for you, Melly. So pay careful attention here. Like a showcase that may inspire contagion of that vision, right? Like we want more of this healthy, diverse forest at landscape scales. There's those words again, at scale. And I think nowhere are there greater challenges around social license than in the Northeast region. And some states are way tougher than others. There's some places we can make some progress, other places that are almost like downright paralyzed because the public is so opposed to having any kind of active vegetation management implemented. And so, Melly, my question for you, as you think about the social license around the work that you have been helping lead in partnership with the Green Mountain and just kind of like the culture of the Northeast, what are some of your observations and what are some of the courses of action that you think are most advisable to help make progress when it comes to building public support for the kind of work that we know needs to happen to make the forest healthier for wildlife and for all of us who love those places?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. I think, and we've kind of talked about this before, I feel like the most impactful way to just talk about the work that we're doing is by getting people out there on the ground and seeing and showing them what's happening and kind of, I guess, being able to communicate what you're seeing, because I think a lot of times people don't see the same things that I'm seeing or Luke would see because we're foresters and we just have different frames of reference than other people. And so I think it's really important to be able to bring people out and show them things. And it's really hard to get people to feel things, talking to them via email, besides like probably, anger. I think it's really easy to like have difficult conversations via email or via online communications, but when you have like face to face conversations with people, I think that's the most impactful because you can really show people how much you care and just like that there's a person behind this. It's not just this horrible thing that's happening on the ground. Like there's someone who cares a lot and there's a community of people who care about this and support the work that we're doing. So I think part of what I really want to do and continue doing at Grass Mountain is just bringing people out there. Just I had the habitat walk before the harvest even happened. I show people what the paint on the trees look like, and I want to bring them out there this spring. It's gonna look raw. It's gonna look rough, but this is, I'm not gonna hide it. That's what it looks like after you implement treatments like this. I think it's really important not to hide things from people. And even I have one of my, so the place where the loggers just started working at, it's a unit that's right off of a road, and so they have the landing right next to the road. And for me, I'm like, I'm not hiding anything. It's all there. It's all there for people to see. And I think that's really important, to not hide the work that we're doing and to just show, and just be honest and be able to communicate why we're doing it and why it's important. And yeah, just to be able to have conversations with folks. And I think the partnership with the Green Mountain National Forest is really important, because they don't have the liberty to talk about the work that they're doing. There's so many people there who are so smart and so passionate about the exact same things that we are, but they just don't have the ability to speak freely. And so, at RGS, we're able to advocate for the work that we're doing, and we're able to talk about why the work is important. That isn't like filtered behind like months of, PR, PR communication. So yeah, that's that's my bit, I
Those are
guess.
great, great
Yeah.
reflections and great recommendations. And not too far away, I want to highlight another cool success story from 2025. I just threw a link in the chat that highlights some of our advocacy work around the White Mountain National Forest, where there has been a lot of controversy around some proposed active management with a focus on wildlife habitat outcomes. And as I'm listening to you, Melly, one of the things that comes to mind, like the idea of focusing on what we're trying to leave behind on the landscape as opposed to what we're trying to take, right? Like, I think a lot of folks, when they see logs coming off of a site, it's like, oh, you're all you're doing is like pillaging the land, and it's this extraction of value, and and it's understandable that they might think that way, because there has been a history of mismanagement of forests on the United States and globally. And that includes on the national forests, right? We're only decades out from some tremendous damage being done through irresponsible logging in places like the Monongahela. Lots of controversy in the Pacific Northwest. Sarah Serve touched earlier on the spotted owl controversy. And framing the conversation around the goals of what conditions we're trying to leave on the ground. And in some cases where we do have timber value, we can leverage that value, as we've been talking about today, through the stewardship model to get even more good work done on the ground. But the example from the White Mountain, just a really cool story of engagement with a coalition of other organizations that care about forest health, some hunting oriented, some totally not hunting oriented, but everybody united in the desire to see more good forest stewardship work happening. So the voice that folks like you have, Melly, in those conversations, and Luke as well, those are critical. We are exceeding expectations in terms of questions. I'm gonna dive into some of these and see what y'all want to have to say. And Luke, maybe I will turn to you. Let's see. Some of these might be a little bit of a stumper, but let's try them out. So James from Connecticut here. Grouse are an almost endangered species here. The state is attempting to create habitat, but due to the birds limited home range, the areas may not ever be productive here. Is trap and transfer from northern New England a viable option? Any thoughts on that? And I think you're on mute, Luke. Putting you in the hot seat.
Thanks. Yeah, I got two thoughts on that, Carl. in general, I'm not aware of any trap and transfer efforts for the rough grouse specifically. That is one of the questions that we field quite frequently is can we stock grouse? And I think the answer to my knowledge is no. We can't. It's not a species that really takes well to stocking. So we generally advise against that. However, uh, the spruce grouse, right, the species that is functionally extirpated from northern New York along the Canadian border, the New York State DEC has actually been relocating spruce grouse from Canada into the area kind of just north of Paul Smith College. So I wouldn't completely rule it out. It's going to probably be a tough sell, but it's not exactly unheard of. I'm just not aware of any ruffed grouse trap and transfer efforts specifically. So yeah, hang in there, James. Come see us up north. One quick just housekeeping thing. I put a couple things in the chat, and then it looks like Kevin said that maybe I was using the wrong chat. So maybe Kevin could sort that out and copy my stuff over into the correct chat, or I don't see Carl's link to the New Hampshire article.
So are you in Q&A? There's a Q&A bubble, and then there's a chat icon as well.
Yeah,
so
I put it in the.
I'm seeing your link to Oak video, and I'm seeing I think you posted.
Okay, good.
Yep,
yeah, for some reason I don't see the link that you shared, Carl, but that's okay. If everybody else can, we won't worry about that.
We'll hope that it's getting through.
Melly mentioned planting oaks strategically, so that just kind of jogged my memory about this awesome video from this really cool entomologist who's done a lot of work on oaks and how they're quite literally the MVP of habitat for a variety of reasons. Make sure everybody, if you're remotely interested in habitat work, make sure you check out that video. It's awesome. But sorry for the aside here. Back to you, Carl.
No, that's great, man. This is informal and free flowing, so I appreciate the interjections. The conversation about the translocation of ruffed grouse. The one fun factoid that comes to mind is the exchange between Minnesota and Missouri, the Great Trade, where Missouri had lost their wild turkeys, and Missouri had lost most of their ruffed grouse, if not all of them. So they had a little swapperoo. Somebody probably knows the year off the top of their head. I don't have that filed away in my mental bank, but I know they did a grouse for turkey trade between those two states. And I think the turkeys did pretty dang well. And to Luke's point, I think the grouse did not do very well. They do great when they've got good habitat, and they really suffer when it comes to any kind of artificial propagation or relocation. Let's see. I love it when I have to scramble between these two with lots of engagement. So let's go. Jeremy Thompson has a question. Melly and Luke are doing great things in their respective operating areas. You're darn right. Can we scale that up across our region? What can the chapters do to help? Thoughts?
I might punt that one back to you, Carl.
Oh, man. Melly, you want to take a stab at it, or you want me to take a stab at it?
Well, I mean, as far as public lands, I would love to, keep doing more stewardship work on the Green Mountain National Forest. It would be great to work on the whites at some point, Probably not, I don't know if I can bounce between New Hampshire and Vermont, but it'd be great to get an RGS person over there. But yeah, It's probably, you can probably answer that a little better.
Well, I think the answer is heck yeah. We're trying to scale up, and there has been a tremendous period of growth organizationally. I mean, we're looking at the org chart more than doubling in the span of a handful of years. with a lot of that capacity being paid for through dollars that are coming in from outside of our income streams, right? Like we are primarily bringing money in through donations, memberships, and the incredible hustle of our chapters. And then we're taking that money and we're using it as leverage, as match to bring in all of these federal and state and other NGO investments. So as we grow incrementally, there's a force multiplier that allows us to build out. And you see across these regions that as the forest conservation directors are in place, leading and growing their region for longer periods of time, they're able to build those teams out. And then as the team gets bigger and bigger, you start getting into the space where a forest conservation director benefits from having one or more coordinators. So you've heard from some of those folks on earlier sessions today. So the answer is like, heck yeah, we can scale up, and that's absolutely what we're doing. And the chapters have been helping tremendously to make that happen. And that's part of what we're trying to do today with Giving Tuesday, is getting more people involved with mission delivery. When a chapter has a work day, this isn't all just about money when we talk about match. Like when a chapter has a work day and you have volunteers coming out to help deliver on the ground work, we can use, if we've got our agreement structured properly, we can use the chapter volunteer hours as a form of match and also leverage or force multiply the value of those hours. So the things that the chapters can be doing is like, first of all, know how much we appreciate the hard work you all have been doing. It's amazing. So know that you're appreciated. 2, keep doing that. 3, trying to get more people involved in our organization. And I would say, like, we should have more of the upland bird hunting community within our umbrella. And I yearn for the day where we have like more people who are very excited about forest health and very excited about conservation. And maybe they have never been grouse or woodcock hunting. Maybe they're like Sarah Serve and they're thinking about their first woodcock hunt sometime this winter. We don't only need to be like dyed in the wool experienced upland bird hunters to care about forests. So this idea of like the community that we can build around stewardship. So I think the stories that we tell, you know, what Melly just offered around the habitat improvement work, just trying to bring more people into that vision. Those are all things that people can be doing. And in terms of today, Giving Tuesday, like get a membership for somebody who you know loves forests, whether they're an upland bird hunter or not, or somebody who is an upland bird hunter and hasn't been a member of our organization yet. Just help us grow the community. And the goal is conservation delivery on the ground. And the goal is effective advocacy. Does that spark anything, Luke, Melly, you want to add on?
I was just gonna say one thing that I think I want to thank our members for is whenever there's a public comment period for the Forest Service, if they ever have public comment periods, our members they're writing letters, and I have people calling me all the time, like asking me when can I when can I write another letter. So I think that what our members are already doing to support the work that we're doing on the greens is incredibly impactful. That means a lot to have a group of people who are passionate and who are willing to speak up for the work that we're doing. And yeah, I think that's
good one. Great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luke? I gotta follow up there, Carl, if we got time.
We got time, man. Let's hear it.
I think we got a break, right? So we can go a little bit over here if that's okay.
We can, as long as people can stand us. Keep rolling, man. Let's hear it.
How are you doing? You need a coffee or something? You've been at this a
I'm doing great. Staying hydrated, having fun.
Yeah. So 2 things. One is, we just got another grant for some capacity building. So, to answer the gentleman's question, we're always trying to hire more staff in more states, right? So we got a capacity building grant for New York just recently that was awarded. we've been in conversations with Vermont Fish and Wildlife and New Hampshire Fish and Game about adding positions in those states. That's been a lengthy process, but I think, you know, I think we're getting close, right, Carl? Hopefully, we're getting close. Uh, a staff member in Maine is not something that we've had in the past, but it's going to be inevitable here sooner or later. And then what can the chapters do? Uh, really cannot emphasize this enough, but anytime that you can make a little bit of time in your schedule to talk to your state wildlife agency about the importance of habitat work on wildlife management areas, right? Like we have state parks, we have forest preserves, we have state land of one determination or another, but wildlife management areas are areas that are specifically set up for wildlife biodiversity, including but not limited to hunting and huntable species. So whether you're into ducks, trout, grouse, deer, or none of the above, it's kind of written in the title, right? The middle word in wildlife management area is management. It's kind of codified right there for us all. So anytime that you can reach out to your state biologists and let them know that, like, hey, I noticed there's some pretty bad gully erosion at the Dead Creek Wildlife Management Area, and as a passionate conservationist, I'm what are we doing about that, right? Like just applying a modicum of pressure, because these folks are getting plenty of verbose feedback from folks that are convinced that the best way to manage our public lands is with an absence of disturbance on the landscape. And I'm not going to get into that too much here. There's certainly times when we want to use stability as a tool to enhance biodiversity, but more often than not, some of these wildlife management areas throughout the Champlain Valley, like they really need some help. They really need some invasive species control. They need some forest structural complexity enhancement of one variety or another. So if you want to talk to your local biologist or your local manager for your WMA and you want some talking points, I would be happy to help anybody like workshop their letter and put in some of those, fancy buzzwords that might help you to be successful.
Fine offer. And Luke, if you're game, just throw your email into the chat, email address, if folks want to reach out. Melly, you too, if folks have questions. I think we're all here available to engage beyond this virtual session as well. And again, I love the engagement in the chat here. I've got another one for you, Melly. I'm going to ask. This is coming from Tim Flanagan. Do your forest harvest plans include preserving mature mass trees and leaving some drumming logs? I think we talk a lot about early successional habitat, but
yes.
Is that all we're about, Melly?
No. Okay, yeah. And I didn't get to. I was actually typing up a response in the chat, but yeah, I was gonna. So I didn't get to talk about the treatments in particular that we're doing at Grass Mountain. So it's a mix of irregular shelterwoods and group selection. So with the shelterwoods, the idea there is the trees that you're leaving behind are serving as seed source, and they're also creating structure in the stand essentially. So yes, we left the majority of the oaks within most of the treatments because our hope is to regenerate oak, and then also other trees that have high wildlife value. So bear-clawed beech, clean beech, soft mass trees, large trees, just because or den trees. So there's a lot of thought put into the trees that we're leaving on the landscape. So I think to an untrained eye, sometimes it can look like you don't leave a lot, but in reality, what you're focused on is I guess what you're leaving behind and the conditions that you're creating. So yeah, Grass Mountain, we left the majority of the oaks, and then obviously in those group selections, the idea there is they're like 1 to 2-acre patches where you really don't leave anything, because the idea there is that you're trying to change the light conditions on the ground and hopefully regenerate some poplar and species like that require a lot of light. And something that we really are battling, and unfortunately might not be as much of an issue anymore, is just heavy competition with beech. And we're losing beech on the landscape, unfortunately, due to both beech bark disease and beech leaf disease. So we're still trying to retain beech on the landscape, but we want to make sure that the trees that we're leaving are essentially have or are healthy and hopefully have a better chance at surviving. So it's all about hope, I guess.
I like that, bringing it back around. Tim, thanks for the question. Melly, appreciate the response. We've got another one here. I'm going to broaden it out and ask both of you to speak to this with respect to your respective geographies. So what are the primary invasive species that are impeding habitat? This is from Harley Montero. Harley, thanks for being here today. Luke, you want to jump in first? Key invasive species issues that you've been wrestling with, what you wake up in the middle of the night, like in night sweats. No, buckthorn! What is it?
I do, Carl. That's factual.
I know you do. I believe it. Give us the list.
Easy question to answer. A little bit harder to do something about it, but buckthorn and honeysuckle are both our primary invasive species in this area. They if left unchecked, they outcompete everything on the forest understory. So they reduce biodiversity. So again, check out that Doug Tallamy video that I posted in the chat about the importance of oaks, and check out some of his other resources, because he does a really good job of explaining to you like why you should care about invasive species and why their management is preferable to the alternative. Buckthorn, honeysuckle, I mean, that's like half of what I do right there, right? The other invasive species that are a concern, multiflora rose, if you have that on your property, is really nasty. Phragmites, if you have that on your property, you got to give us a call and we'll try to help you figure out a way to get it taken care of. These species are like ecological Armageddons. So if you have a big patch of it, not always so much we can do for an affordable price, but you have a small patch, please give us a call. Let's talk about it. Some of the other ones that we're seeing more and more of are Oriental bittersweet and Japanese barberry. Those two seem to be increasing more recently. All very tenacious. And then, there's some weird ones out there, some less common ones like burning bush, and now there's an amur maple. Is it AMUR? Is it Melly? AMOR? I can't remember, but now there's an invasive maple that's spreading throughout Vermont. So yeah, those are the main ones. They can be controlled, however. So, if you have them on your property, coming full circle back to the beginning of the conversation, like what you want to do when you wake up in the morning and get out of bed, like that's something that you can do, something about that has a tangible and a lasting impact. You can be successful controlling those species. I would caution folks, for one, if you're interested in this, check out the article that I wrote for Covers magazine last winter for more details, but also make sure you're hiring a professional applicator, or you're hitting the books and getting very studious, or at least giving me a call before you get started, because you can really make a mess if you just go to the hardware store and buy chemical and start treating this stuff yourself. The importance of doing math when you're doing this kind of work should not be overlooked. because you can break the law by accident pretty easily. So just give us a call. We'll help you out.
Words of wisdom, here to serve. And there's some really nice feedback in the chat as well from some of the folks who have benefited from Luke's expertise. So, Melly, any gaps? Yeah, go ahead.
I can't see the chat. My chat is broken somehow.
So Lawrence Pine saying he echoes Luke's concern about buckthorn and honeysuckle. Thankfully, Luke has helped me tap some federal funding to control both on my land while I still can. So, sounds like a satisfied customer. Thanks for that feedback. Melly, any gaps on that list? And I've got another one to add for you as we close in on the top of the hour.
No, I think Luke pretty much covered them all. I mean, yeah, the big ones are honeysuckle, Japanese barberry, garlic mustard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Stilt grass is showing its face in Vermont now.
No shortage of need. We're going to give our last question then to Tristan Fugel, and this is going to go for you, Melly. Do you have a high deer population in Vermont? Are you doing anything to mitigate deer browse?
Yeah, I would say so. Where Grass Mountain is located is in the Taconic, so kind of southwest Vermont. That area definitely has higher deer browse issues. I would say in the majority of the greens, there's not as bad. It's not as bad. They've put tree shelters around some of the some of their plantings, and we haven't quite decided yet at Grass Mountain if we're gonna put shelters around our trees that we plant. Kind of the hope is there's enough slash on the ground that would kind of deter the deer a little bit, but it's not, it's not, especially if the populations are pretty intense. But I think we should be okay at Grass Mountain. We'll probably play around with throwing shelters on like a certain percentage of trees just to ensure that we have that, much survival, I guess.
Thank you, Melly. And Tristan, thanks for the question. So, friends, that brings us to the top of the hour. I just want to take a moment again to say thank you to all of our attendees for taking time to join us here today. Encourage folks to travel on over to roughgrousesociety.org to learn more about our organization. You can also follow the link here if you're interested in re-upping memberships, making a contribution. Whatever you decide today, we want everybody to know that we very sincerely appreciate the continuing support of this community. I think based on what you've heard from Melly and Luke, you have a sense of the amazing caliber of professionals that we have working for our organization. Melly, Luke, thank you for being here. Anything you want to add in terms of a call to action while we close this out?
Yeah, just one, Carl. I just want to remind folks that, it is Giving Tuesday today. So make your way on down to that donate button below if you would. I want to make a little space for folks aren't in a position to give. We got some volunteer projects in the works coming up this spring. So I posted a link in the chat to some of the photos from one of our volunteer projects. If you want to see some really neat stuff going on, go ahead and check out that link. But my challenge to folks on the call is, think about whatever dinner you went out to take your sweetie out to dinner last week. How much did you spend on a couple of steaks and a bottle of wine? And if that was no problem for you to spend that money on a couple of steaks and a bottle of wine, then maybe match that in your contribution to RGS. And if that was no problem, then mosey on over to your gun cabinet and pull out the least expensive shotgun that you have in there. And, maybe that's like a Mossberg Gold Reserve or something. It's worth like $800, right? So maybe match that least expensive shotgun and match that value and donate that. Or if that's no problem for you, maybe you can pull out the most expensive shotgun in your cabinet and match that value. And, if that's no problem, you can just keep on going right up from there. Should I keep going, Carl, or should we shut this
Right
down?
out to the garage. What kind of truck do you have?
Yeah, what kind of truck do you
Yeah.
have? How much did you spend? How much did you shell out last time your dog got hurt? Okay.
Yeah.
I know for me at the vet, it was $5,000. So if your most expensive shotgun was no problem for you, then maybe match your, hey, sweetie.
They do get expensive, but they're worth it. By God.
And if that's no problem
that's well
for you,
done. You drive a hard message, Luke McNally.
I'm not done, man. If that's no problem for you,
Jared McNabb. This is the second. This might be the second or first best quotable quote of the day after Zach talking about wanting to be consumptive. My Mossberg Gold Reserve is my most expensive shotgun. We'll take like if you're shooting a break action partner single shot, that is okay.
Yeah,
we're
totally
not
cool.
Shotgun elitists here,
No.
by God. But the point is well taken. The point is well taken. Melly?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I can compete with that. I mean, I just want to say thank you to our members. I have had the opportunity to meet a few of you, and I just appreciate the support. And I'm happy to be doing work that benefits us all. So yeah.
Well, it is a real honor and pleasure to get to work with both of you and with our whole team, and to be part of this broader community of people who care about leaving a legacy of forests and wildlife for the people who are going to come after us. It's really cool to be part of this with all of you. So a reminder, we have 2 more sessions left coming up. I'm going to refer back to my calendar here, which I've got pulled up on the phone conveniently enough. So at 5 o'clock Central or 6 o'clock Eastern, we're going to hear from John Staggerwalt covering our Western Great Lakes region. Followed immediately at 6 to 7 Central, 7 to 8 Eastern. My friend and colleague, Mark Hatfield, recently minted Chief Conservation and Operations Officer. He and I will be joining for a Q&A after that to close out our Giving Tuesday program. But thank you all for making it possible. Luke, Melly, awesome job. Everybody, let's go back to where we started. Get a kid in your life out in the woods at your next opportunity. Thanks for being with us. Have a great Giving Tuesday, everybody. Over and out.
Ciao.